Hey guys, I'm Steven here with Team Covenant, joined by Tim and Zach, and we are here to unbox what might be one of the best data packs ever made.
It's probably true.
True Colors.
That's what I would say.
So I'm going to get her all kicked off here with an Anarch card that there's been a lot of talk about, and that is Keyhole. It's a 4-cost program, 2 MU, 3 influence. It has no strength because it is not an icebreaker. It has a simple action on it. Make a run on R&D. If successful, instead of accessing cards, look at the top 3 cards of R&D. Trash one of those cards at no cost, even if it cannot normally be trashed, and then the Corp shuffles R&D. Tim, you love this card.
I do love this card.
Why?
I think it's a super strong card. It's essentially a mini indexing, is one way to look at it. You get to see 3 cards, you get to pick the one that you want or you don't want them to have. Either way, it's good for you. And then they get to shuffle R&D, which is not always the worst thing to happen because sometimes there's nothing on R&D.
Absolutely. In fact, we were talking about this earlier. The Keyhole interacting with medium is really kind of interesting. It gives you a lot of choices to make.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you make a Keyhole run, you get a counter on medium, but you don't actually access the cards. Maybe you build counters with medium that way. Then you make your 4-counter run, and it's like, okay, sweet, I got nothing off the deck. So now I'm going to Keyhole, they're going to shuffle, and I'm going to try again with 5 cards. So it can really leverage. It can really leverage your ability to just get into R&D, kind of similar to what Demo Run does, except this is just, I think, way easier to consistently have on the board.
Yeah.
Obviously,
The
the real question here, and as an Anarch player, I certainly feel the pressure of this card, and that is the 2 MU. When you're thinking about an Anarch rig and you're thinking Keyhole and medium together, it's already 3 MU. You still got to have icebreakers to get into R&D, obviously.
Just run a Crypsis and a Mimic. Call it
Just run Crypsis and a Mimic. Well, luckily we do have a really good MU console, which is Grimoire. So that'll take us to 6 MU. You don't really want to run memory chips or anything. I think everyone's kind of come around to that. So you're really working with 5 or 6 MU on the Anarch side of things until we get a runner that has MU attached to him or her. And I don't know, I think this is a hard one sometimes to have. I think it's a hard include when you're looking at, I need my deck to do the basic things of Netrunner, which is break ice and et cetera, et cetera.
I look at this card, I liken it to, I should say, Sneak Door Beta.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Anarch Sneak Door, if you will. And the same idea is there. It's, Sneak Door's 2 MU.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to fit this in my rig? Well, you don't need it the whole game. Like
Mm-hmm.
You just need it to be a problem so they ice up on R&D and hopefully archives.
Or it's the card that you draw late game and they're not expecting it. You're like, oh, Keyhole.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. A little bit more efficiency there.
It's just one of those things that I think that most Anarch decks should at least run 2. Sort of like I think every criminal deck should run 2 Sneak Doors.
Yeah. Well, I will, it. The criminal shtick is being able to do a lot without programs or icebreakers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Keyhole to me starts to feel a little bit cramped whenever I'm choosing whether to include it, because right now it's like, man, I want to include some Knights because they just break everything. They're a great card. I want to probably have at least, one version of a main breaker. So like some Corroders, maybe a Mimic or 2, Yogg, yes, no is kind of the question there. Then I got to make room for viruses if I want to run viruses. So between chess, viruses, icebreakers, and a program like Keyhole, it's like there's a lot to try to fit in here. So I do agree that it's a very good card. I think Anarch players like myself will try it out and use it. I think it's a good splash in certain decks. I think the Shapers actually like this quite a bit too. Obviously, Kit probably digs this pretty well. But does it stay in the deck, I think, is the question that we'll have to ask ourselves. And this may not be the greatest card for Anarch, as far as the faction that it's in may hold the card back, but we'll see. I think Anarch has a lot of MU competition right now, is my concern.
I think it's a good enough ability to be used.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the most game-breaking card in the world, but it's good. It's really good. Do you think this goes into a Professor deck?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is it a program?
It is. I'm really excited to see more and more programs coming out because obviously they have a lot of ways to use programs in fun ways. But having cards like this that sort of like a medium, and at the right time can be game breaking and just put pressure that's just enormous on the Corp. So
the more trashing stuff we can get, the better, to prevent crazy stuff like punitive counter-strikes and scorched and whatnot. So
C-Source, mid-seasons.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Hedge
key
funds.
cards.
I mean, even be able to trash like a Sand
Or an Archer.
just without having to pay the cost.
Or an agenda.
Or an agenda. That would be a pretty. It's like use number one. Oh, agenda. I'm gonna run archives.
Anyways, up next we have Activist Support. It is a 1-cost Anarch resource, 2 influence. When the Corp turn begins, take 1 tag if you have no tags. When your turn begins, give the Corp 1 bad publicity if he or she has no bad publicity. Womp womp.
Oh man, I do not agree with this card whatsoever, really, in any way.
My first thought, and this is, well, I mean, this is not gonna happen. Just let that be known. But for some reason, I'm picturing Aesop's Pawn Shop.
Yeah.
Where you can play
Yeah.
it. Their turn begins, they get a bad pub. Your turn begins, you trash it, gain 3
No,
money.
when their turn begins, is that you take a tag.
You take a tag. Oh, it's even worse than you thought, yeah. When the
there
card
it
turns
is.
begins, open yourself up for Scorched Earth, closed accounts,
Or just trashing this card.
or just trashing any card, any resource you ever would want to run. And then when your turn begins, you give them a bad pub, and that's it. It doesn't stack bad pubs.
And now
on
the obvious synergy here.
the tag me decks.
Synergy here is not tag me. It is New Angeles City Hall. You pay to prevent the tag. You force the bad publicity on them, and maybe you Aesops it, maybe you don't. Whatever. Well, no, because maybe you do, maybe you don't. But
Maybe you do.
at the end of the day, you're still giving them 1 bad publicity, which I mean, bad pub is good, but it's not game breaking. At least not yet.
Not yet.
I wouldn't be surprised if
If
this
there was
card.
more reason to give them bad pub.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this card is in a deck eventually.
Yeah.
Like, it would take a lot to make this card worth it to me.
If it would be a much more interesting and certainly game challenging card. I won't say breaking. If it said when Corp begins, take a tag. When their turn begins, they take a bad pub. Like being able to stack bad pub on that makes a lot more sense. Now the Corp is incentivized to trash this card before it gets bad for them.
That would also get pretty ridiculous because of New Angeles City Hall, though.
Yeah.
So I just keep avoiding the tag for like 4 turns until you have 4, maybe 5 bad publicity.
Mhm.
It gets crazy.
And that's like that's.
You got Elizabeth Mills, right? But that certainly makes it an interesting and card. As it is now, it's a binder card.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yep.
The old binder card.
Well, maybe we'll see it one day. Maybe not.
Next up, we have Lawyer Up, which is a 2-cost criminal event. It's a double. So as an initial cost to play the event, spend a click, remove up to 2 tags, and draw 3 cards. 1 influence.
Think it's a good card.
There's
I
one
think
deck that it goes in.
I think it makes certain decks stronger for no reason.
Gabriel account siphon.
I mean, Andy Siphon, Criminal Siphon.
3 siphon, 3 same old thing like we were talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and now,
It's like, oh, I'm just gonna save 2 money and get 2 cards.
what a punishment. I think it's good. I mean, yeah, this is a great card.
It's not an every deck card.
Is it a card that was needed for this
No.
environment? I don't know that it was. Of course, it's hard to predict how environments are going to shape up, but sometimes it's not good at all. At all.
It is superior to networking, I think.
Yeah,
'Cause I
Yeah.
don't think that card's very good.
fair enough.
I'm not going to disagree.
I don't like things I have to hold in my hand.
Yep.
That's number 1 rule.
Yep.
So yeah, this feels very thematic, and it feels like a really strong card for the account siphon taggy decks. So.
Yep. I think it'll see play.
Well done, criminals. How about leverage? 1-cost event. Play only if you made a successful run on HQ this turn. Prevent all damage until the beginning of your next turn, unless the Corp takes 2 bad publicity, and it is 2 influence. Well, yeah, it's kind of a
It's not that great.
little underwhelming.
I get it. The most people are like, oh, they won't scorch me, but like they'll take the bad pub. Like,
And then they'll scorch.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
the
they'll scorch
problem.
you. But then you think about it, like if you spend some time thinking about it, it's like, well, like if I'm playing against Jinteki or HB, it's
Yeah.
like, so I run an HQ, then I play this card, and now your Janus is pointless.
Yeah.
I'm just going to walk through it. That's probably where this card is going to see the best play. Also against Jinteki, I'm going to run your HQ, play this card, and I'm going to run on a trap.
Yeah.
Or you're going to take 2 bad pub, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, I think that's the best use of it. It's not really to prevent damage on your opponent's turn.
No.
It is nice if Jinteki fast advance is a thing, and they can do a damage every time they score. just playing it, it's like, yeah, do you really want to score that agenda this turn?
You do, but the thing about this is like if you're putting this card in just for Jinteki,
Yeah, you
it's
don't
probably
want to
not worth the slot.
I mean, another good little thing is like you're on archives, like we were talking about earlier, and it's like, oh, I scored 5 points because they're planning to punitive me. And now it's like, well, I'm going to run HQ, maybe score an agenda there and win the game, and then I'm going to leverage and give myself another turn before I...
Or they'll take the bad pub and...
Or they'll take the bad
That's the
pub.
that's the
But
problem.
at least
if they can kill
you get
they'll do
2
it.
credits to fight the trace with. No, that's not during a run.
It's only during a run.
That's
so,
awful.
Yeah, it's you want it to be.
So you want it to be good. And
But I mean, at the same time, right? Like, if you run HQ first, and you can't fall into a trap. Like, how terrifying is something that's advanced 3 times?
It's a lot less scary.
It's less scary, but it's not scary enough to ever really run this card.
That's exactly the point.
And why does it have the play only if you made a successful run text? I'm not sure, because it becomes a lot more interesting to me if it doesn't have that.
Yeah, I would agree.
So again, this is going to be in your stack of 60 to 70 cards when you start making a deck, and it's going to get cut.
Yep.
Anyone want to disagree?
I don't.
I mean,
Yes.
I don't, unless it's a card that is really good in my opinion against Jinteki, especially the criminal.
I wouldn't even call it really good.
I wish that
Jinteki.
Corp takes 2 bad pub wasn't there. At least then maybe I can recur this with like same old things or something. Even then it's not good. But there's so many conditions around this card. What if you can't get into HQ? What if they just take the bad pub and kill you? What's...
Well, I'm just picturing, so like Tim plays Jinteki, and I've lately been playing a game deck where I'll drop down a Sneak Door Beta, or I could drop down a Sneak Door Beta, but I don't, because I know what's in his hand is Snare, Fetal, Shock. And it's like...
Do you know that, or you just know that?
But you've got to run it before you can play this. So you've
Sure,
gotta,
I can take, but you can take one shot.
Yeah.
And you can't take a fetal.
I mean,
Can't take a
here's the
snare.
ultimate question. In that deck and in that situation, what are you going to cut out of the deck to put 2 or 3 leverages
Nothing
in?
is the answer. Like, it just doesn't have the slot, right? Like,
It does not have the slot. Like, criminal events, this is not making it.
all right.
Sorry.
All right.
Sorry, guys. That is just don't like it.
Up next, we have Garrote. It is a 7-cost, 2 MU criminal program, Icebreaker Killer. It starts out at 2 strength, plus 1 strength for 1 credit, and it breaks into subroutines for 1 credit. I like this card a lot.
Seems like the best Sentry Breaker just down the line.
It is the most efficient Sentry Breaker based on strength money ratios,
And when you
except
have
for
to
Fairy.
when you have to crash into an archer, it's
Yeah.
like, I'll crash into it with this.
I've had a lot of interesting discussions on this card since it
Yeah?
came out, and I get the math. I 100% get the math that this is currently probably the most sustainable and efficient Sentry Breaker.
Not probably.
It is. It is. So I get it. I totally get it. But at first I didn't really know how to say it. Why I wasn't like, when we first opened it, Tim was just like super amazed by this card.
I was in love with it.
And
Still
I thought it was good. I said it was good, but not great, and I couldn't really verbalize why. But I think I've discovered why.
We were talking about it a while
Yeah,
back.
my problem with this card at the moment is, like, yes, it does break sentries better than anything on the planet, but it's not really a problem that I'm like worried about right now. Like, efficiently breaking sentries
You
is
haven't
not.
played enough Netrunner.
No, I have, and maybe it's just because I've been playing Gabe lately, and I think this fits really well into a Shaper rig. Super efficient. You do your thing. You have a lot of MU, but like paying 7 and 2 of my MU for this is interesting, because I'm just not that concerned with sentries.
The question, can I get it done without Garrote? Like, can I get it done with fairies, like I've been doing already? Can I get past it with inside jobs and shutdowns?
If you want to look at cards that way, it's like, well, we don't need to look at this pack. I mean, I've been playing the game before this pack.
I mean, well...
Does it improve, like, does it solve a
What,
problem?
do you cut something to put this in?
Yeah, and that's what, like, yeah, okay, you can run 1, but it's like, or you can run 2, or however many you want to run. And being 3 influence, like, out of criminal makes it even more interesting, because now it's 3 influence and 2 MU. But for me, it's just, I can't remember a game that I've lost because I had a problem with sentries.
I can agree with that, but I can remember games I lost because I didn't have the money. And this card saves you the money over time.
It can.
It's just a great card for this reason.
I mean, I think it's
not obvious. It's like some people will find it great and some people will not.
I think it's good. I just think it's, at least for the decks I'm playing now, it's solving a problem I'm not really having yet.
And that might be the case.
And that's
fair.
what, like, again, I get it's mathematically most efficient Sentry Breaker in the game, but that doesn't do much for me if breaking sentries is not something I'm worried about doing very often.
I'm just trying to think of a game where I wasn't worried about sentries.
I mean, I'm worried about them, but not worried about them like. I mean,
I guess the ultimate question is like, do you switch out fairies for garrots? Does inside job, emergency shutdown, etc. deal with the problem better anyway? Like, do you need to break a sentry all the time, or do you need to break it occasionally with like a fairy or through an archer or something? And it just is where the game is. It's where the meta is what you're seeing, and it's a good option for criminal to have. I think it also works really well, of course, with like Eureka and those big reducers and retrieval runs really nice with it. Of course, test run is really good if you need to get through something. So it actually works well because it's such a good sentry breaker. It works well everywhere, and it's when you're looking at Mimic or Garrot, it's kind of a hard toss up sometimes. It's like, what am I worried about the most? And criminal having special order, I think you put one in, and if you need it, if you have a really nasty sentry server, then sure, it makes a lot of sense. If not, don't bother. Trash it.
I think it's good. A good card. That's all I'm going to say.
It is a good one.
All right, next up, we have the LLDS processor. It's a one-cost Shaper hardware. It's a chip. Whenever you install an icebreaker, that icebreaker has +1 strength until the end of the run.
End of the turn.
Oh, end of the turn. I read that.
Yeah, how about that?
1 influence, so it's easily splashable.
Yep. I'm trying so hard to find a reason that this is great. And you have to go down the proverbial rabbit hole to find a scenario where this is amazing or even good. I mean, let's say I have a replicator deck and I get 3 of them out.
Let's just say you have 3 of them out.
And then I play an icebreaker. It's +3 strength till the end of the turn, and then I can maybe continually scavenge it.
You can also clone ship things in. Self-modifying code.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe I have a worm ice destruction deck.
Would test run count?
Yeah.
Test run something in, it goes on the top of your deck, then you draw it and you play it again.
Assuming that you have 1 or 3 of these out.
Yeah. I mean, there's something there.
I mean, that is how you would use this card to its fullest potential, I believe. But once again, I feel like this is a binder card.
Yeah,
I'm just saying it. I said it. I'm sorry.
I don't see where this.
I'm sorry.
I don't see what a Shaper deck takes out to give them
but what about
a shot
Ace
at this. At this
no,
maybe
that's
being
a
useful.
valid argument.
Yeah, because you play it for free with K.
With Ace Hops, this is
money.
essentially an easy mark.
This is a nice little cheap thing to replicate.
In theory.
If you have a replicator out and you play this card and you have Ace Hops out, it's worth 3 on the next turn.
That's something. I mean, it's something.
No, it is something.
It is something. I'm going to agree on the binder.
I want to put it in an Anarch deck because of those fixed breakers, but there's no way I'm putting that in there.
Kit could install Yogg over and over again.
Another thing that you can do is you could like clone chip out a Yogg unexpectedly and get through the server that they didn't think you could get through. Like surprise strength is good, but it's not.
I mean, it's not really.
I don't know. There's just a lot of times this card isn't good at all.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
I
that's
think
the
that's what
problem.
it comes down to. All right, let's go to Sharpshooter. It's a 1 cost, 1 MU program icebreaker, and it's 3 strength, 1 influence. You can trash it to break any number of destroyer subroutines, and you can pay 1 to give it +2 strength. So this will tear up any ice that destroys programs, trashes programs.
Breaks Archer for 2 credits.
That's really nice. That's very nice.
2 plus the program.
2 credits once it it's the sunk cost.
Sunk cost because you've already installed it.
I've got to tell you,
this
is a good card.
It is a good card. It's definitely a one-of.
It lets me run early without having to find my Sentry Breaker.
I mean, I think this is
Just
great
have to find this
in
instead.
with self-modifying code. Be able to go get it.
Yep.
Assuming if you're running Kate, you put it into play free, pay one, trash it.
Works right into the Shaper business.
Yeah, I mean that's great. 1 influence, so you could technically run it.
I would like to
elsewhere.
see eventually that there's cards that give ice traits.
Mm-hmm.
So you can give something the destroyer trait.
Sort of like
Yeah.
whatever that course that card is that makes it a
Tinkering.
Yeah,
Tinkering.
tinkering.
Man, I love that card.
3 of the base ones.
Wish it
Yeah.
was not.
But it'd be cool if it gave it
destroyer.
or whatever.
Break and break.
You know.
You could see stuff there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
I have to say, I really enjoy that art.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very synergistic card for shapers. It works right into the program searching recursion kind of thing.
I love that Archer is Archer arrows, and then Sharpshooter destroys Archer.
It seems to make sense. Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's
Maybe
ironic.
it's the thing.
Maybe it is. Anyways, up next, we have Capstone. It is a unique 2-cost hardware, 3 influence shaper. It has an action on it. Trash any number of cards from your grip. For each trashed card of which you have another copy installed, draw 1 card.
This one's not lighting the world up for me.
It's not. That's fair.
It's unique too, right?
It is unique. But you wouldn't ever want more than one of them out.
You'd only run one in a deck.
The thing about this card is that sometimes you want things in your trash.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're running a retriever run deck, like Bruggles has ran for a long time, he's always like diesel, quality time to get up, and then discard the cards down, and now you can just be like, click, trash.
I mean, the replicator puts the card in your hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've already installed it. You could potentially have 2 or 3 cards in your hand. Trigger this, draw a bunch of cards.
Yeah, if you run 3 of this and you are running a replicator deck,
just thin out your deck and get
bada
what
bing,
you want.
bada boom, you're drawing more cards. It's not the worst card I've ever
It's
seen.
absolutely not the worst card. I agree.
It's also not the best card.
The reason that I like drawing and trashing, in those instances is drawing is always good. This is a card that you could draw and not really want to play it because it's not doing anything, and then later on you have to play it and then use it. But you could see some feisty shaper weird decks that maybe use this to a good effect.
In some manner.
I love that the professor's on it, although this card would be terrible.
Yeah, because you
use
couldn't have
with
dupes.
Professor.
Yeah. It's his Capstone now, right?
Yeah.
So, and you have to imagine if you had Ace Offs out. I'm just kidding. No, this card is just...
This is a sleeper hit for me, actually.
Yeah.
I think I'm undervaluing this card right now, and it will get thrown back in my face.
I think that it will definitely have a use. I just don't think it's the best card you've ever seen.
It's
no J-How.
It's interesting.
It's no J-How, that's for sure.
It is interesting.
All right.
Next up, we have probably the best card in the pack.
I would agree with that.
Neutral runner card, no influence cost.
Did you guys just say that? I was to catch if I was actually listening or not. I was reading the card. It's like, what?
1 cost, Starlight Crusade Funding. It's a resource. When your turn begins, you lose a click. And for a click, you can ignore the additional cost on each double event that you play. Man, this card. I'm no world champion in that runner. I won't even say I am, or even that I'm fantastic at it. But this seems so conditional. I mean,
You have to play at least 1 double every turn
to break even. It's crazy.
No, I totally agree. Whenever I first read this card, I was like, what is this? What? And then I got into thinking about it, and it was still bad, but the time that you can see this used, and I could totally see it happening.
Are you going to say frame job?
It's for, no.
Because I'm there. My brain is there. Is frame job a double?
It is.
I've got it. I win. Go ahead, though.
For a combo deck.
Right.
There's going to be a combo eventually that needs this card to function as.
Yeah.
And then that will be great.
Yeah.
Like you need to play 3 or 4 doubles in the same turn.
Or 3, because this loses a click. But yeah, you
Yeah.
play 3
Well,
doubles.
maybe one of the doubles.
But if you
Gain
have
2 clicks.
ace tops, you can track
Yeah,
it.
you could indeed.
No.
trash it.
It is a combo piece completely.
Or the other avenue I can see this going is if they come out with a double that has another additional cost.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like
Isn't additional cost of frame job the Corp play only if the Corp has 1 back? Is that
No,
an additional cost?
it's not what the
Is
card
that a
says.
restriction? Okay, I can't remember
The
it.
card gives.
I've
them a
never
backup.
looked at it. Literally, I've looked at it once during the unboxing and never.
It's a double event that you forfeit an agenda to give the Corp a bad publicity.
So
Oh, really? It's even worse than I remember.
So what you're
It's
saying
amazing.
is, if there was some fantastic double events that came out that had other costs associated,
Yeah.
you would ignore those as well.
like also
Um,
pay 10 credits, and it's
yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, okay. In all seriousness, if you were running an Aesop stack, I'm not kidding here.
oh no.
I could, in a combo piece, you play it on the turn you're
Combo
going to use it, and then because it's the first turn you use it. Obviously, you're using the click to install it, but it's
Right.
not costing you an extra click beyond that.
Right.
When you start your turn, you can play a couple doubles. The next turn comes around, you trash it.
You
for
can't play the
Aesops.
doubles that turn. Or you can.
Yeah, immediately you
totally
can use
can.
it that turn,
And then Aesop's it next
and
turn.
then you
have to
Aesops
deal
it. So
with it.
technically, if you were Aesops, I
Man.
feel like Aesops is the outlet for any bad card.
Zach's MVP card here is
Yeah,
Aesop's.
Aesop's.
This,
The
this
entire pack.
unboxing, man.
Yeah, makes all the runner cards good again.
Run
It's
3
crazy.
Aesops and they're all great because you can just trash all the bad cards. Yeah, apparently. Yeah, no, I think you got it. I think you got the best of it there, Tim. It's you combo it out. There's gonna be a weird deck someday that uses
This is
this.
the card
and
in
then-
like 3 years where you're going to be at a world championship and you're playing, and you see them drop it, and you're like, can I see that?
Yeah,
What, the,
yeah,
And then do game.
And then, yeah.
yeah. Something weird happens. All right, well, shall we move on, Tim? You got Rex campaign there?
Sure. Rex campaign, 1 cost asset advertisement for HB. It's 2 influence, 3 trash costs. Place 3 power counters on Rex campaign when it is res. When there are no power counters left on Rex campaign, trash it and either remove a bad publicity or gain 5 credits. When your turn begins, you remove a power counter. I'm not a big fan of this card.
I just don't see how it goes in.
In a faction that already has Adonis and Eve, this is not better than either of those cards, and you're already so tight on slots in that deck, or any HB deck, really.
It's weird. I feel like we're getting this huge buildup for bad publicity, removal and giving. We just haven't seen anything that cares yet
Yeah.
about bad pubs. So maybe
Yeah, I mean, if bad publicity becomes a huge issue in the game, for some reason the runner can give it to you and just do bad things. This is an interesting option, but it's not Eve or Adonis.
The other thing about this, the bad publicity side of this card is, HB only has 1 card that can give them bad publicity right now.
yeah,
And it's like, how often have you seen an HB player with bad pub?
yeah.
Either of you? Have you seen very
No,
much?
no.
No.
I think it's got to be a meta call at some point in the future. But also, I mean, you pay 1 to res and you get 5 out of it for nothing.
If they don't trash it.
if they don't trash it.
Because it doesn't pay back immediately like other ones do.
I wish it was a bit higher on the trash cost, to be honest.
That's the real fault of it. If it was like a 5 trash cost, all day,
Yeah.
I would love this card.
I think it'd be okay.
But it's just so easy to trash, and it's also not paying you back, making it less, like, you know that I have 3 turns to trash this card.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and if I need to, I can get over there and get it.
Right.
Technically, it'd be 2 though, right? 'Cause
2,
You could res it on the
yeah.
start of your turn. Yeah.
But still.
So,
Anyways, all right, Zach.
next up, we have Fenris, which is an HB Ice.
Speak of the devil.
Yep,
the
it's
one card.
4 res, cost 2 strength. It's Sentry, AP, it's illicit. When you res Fenris, take 1 bad publicity. 2 subroutines, do 1 brain damage, and in the run.
I'll tell you.
I like this card, yeah.
Jinteki loves this card.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they do. You Jintekiers, man.
They love this card.
So good.
Oh, you're gonna face check because you're not afraid of that no katana. You whatever. Oh, you brain damage.
Yeah, brain damage.
Yeah, I've got 5 cards in hand. What's the worst? It's like,
Yeah.
4 for the rest of the game against Jinteki is death.
And I mean, Jinteki even has bad pub removal built in with that 3-1 they got.
And then also another 3-1 that is being talked about later.
Yep.
This is good. This is a good little piece of ice.
2 influence,
Not
so
game breaking.
splashable.
It's gonna screw you over enough a few times that you're gonna worry about face checking. I have a hard time running without my Sentry Breaker up front anyway, just because all the program trashing from
Yep.
roto turrets and whatnot. So
Yep.
it might lose some effectiveness because you start to get so nervous that they always just break it, but then slowing them down. So
One thing I want to note, I ran against a lot of decks that run the ice that gives them a bad pub when they res, and again, been using a Gabe deck, shut down, and I've amassed a lot of bad pub over games using shutdown on some of these ice. So I think it's a good balancing mechanic in the game for some interesting ice.
The thing about these ice though is I think a lot of people res them unnecessarily.
yeah,
Like I've seen people res Grims whenever someone has the means to just break it, and it's like,
Probably
is
not
that really
the
worth
best,
it?
yeah.
Like I know that they're gonna have to break it from now on, but
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're playing against criminal, right? Like, you don't want to res it and then get it shut down and have to pay for it again and get another bad pub. That's just
Bad pub stacks up hard. I mean, it's huge when it starts rolling.
Yep.
It's hard to make it as the core.
That's a good piece of ice.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the old panic button, one of my absolute favorite cards. It is an upgrade, 1 cost, 2 to trash. You can install it only in the root of HQ. It's 1 influence, which is nice. And it says, spend a credit, draw a card. Use this ability only during a run on HQ.
This card's great.
I think it's phenomenal, really. I mean, I think it's great. It's great for its intended use, and it's great for its unintended use, which is to get your combo pieces immediately.
It's unintended use.
Obviously, you can give them less of a chance to hit an agenda if they're running HQ. At the same time, you could give them more of a chance to hit an agenda if you happen to draw 5, but
math.
You know what the math is.
But
on
I
that.
mean, sometimes you want them to hit an agenda, right?
Sometimes you want them to hit an agenda, and if I can pay 20 credits to draw 20 cards, sometimes that's the thing I might want to do.
A couple things about this card. Like you said, combo decks love it. Oh, you're running my hand, I'm just going to pay 20 and find, my accelerated diagnostics and power shutdown
done.
Or whatever.
Boom.
But another thing this card is good for, cerebral imaging. That little identity most people forget about.
Yes.
Credits equal hand size. I'm just saying. Like, I get up on credits by a significant amount. Like, it's hard to draw all of those cards. Like, it's time consuming.
Mm-hmm.
Until this guy came along.
It's like, I'll just pay 9, draw 9, and my hand size is still 18.
Mm-hmm. Could be interesting as a way to kind of chuck some credits for siphon
against
too.
A Corp that has
it's really good, yeah.
10 cards in hand, 15 cards in hand.
I've done it.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, it's like running R&D. I mean,
I think that's a good card.
It's a very good card. It's a good card.
Yep.
It's a solid include.
And 1 influence means we will be seeing it.
We'll see it. We'll definitely see it.
Is this one me?
It is.
Sure, shock us around.
Up next we have Shock. It is a Jinteki asset, 2 influence, 0 rest cost, 2 trash. It's an ambush. If Shock is accessed from R&D, the runner must reveal it. When the runner accesses a Shock, do 1 net damage, even if it is not installed.
I tell you, I haven't played the challenge decks. I think we all got a hefty dose of Shock.
Yeah.
This is a meta-changing card.
Yeah.
If I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
You always have to be aware of it. It hurts Desperado a lot. It hurts Data Sucker a lot. It's just a really good card. It's just another thing for you to be worried about from R&D and HQ. And it's like 2 trash costs. It's like, do I really want to pay that? And then it's in archives, and then they can hide agendas in archives, and I don't want to check it because I know I'll take 2 damage no matter what.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that just...
Yeah, this is fantastic slot for
It's
Jinteki.
a great little Jinteki card. I find it interesting, and I think you ultimately are right on it, that, it does change things. It's one of those cards that's riding the line for me, especially as we get more cards going down, cycles from now. It's like there's a certain, you have to measure both the efficiency of a card and the potency of a card for it to make a slot, right? So like if you're choosing between this and like Scorched or this and a Neural Katana, there's there's calculations that are going on there. And for just the single net damage, you might include 3 of these now, but like, in 4 or 5 months, is this going to be potent enough of a card that you're going to see it in Jinteki decks anymore? I don't know.
I mean,
I imagine that eventually we'll get to the point where there's a Jinteki deck that just runs 1 of every trap.
Yeah.
Or maybe 2 of some, but like it's just one of the things that they have so many different options and different like every time they draw a card, it's like, well, I have no clue which one that is. Like,
you just can't know.
It could have been anything, any of the numerous amounts of traps that are available.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about it for me is it slots really well. I've played against a handful of different Jinteki decks in the past week, and I feel like this is slotting in very well into decks that are trying to deck you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they ultimately want to kill you, but they're going to deck you first, and then you just don't have any options.
Yeah.
Well, it's either option A, you mess up and I kill you, or option B, you just run out of cards.
Yeah, you just run out of cards. I'm not really trying to win by agenda points. I'll score some to do damage. And there's that style, but then there's also the I'm literally trying to kill you actively all the time Jinteki. And Shock may or may not make it into that because it is only 1 net damage, but it's
a bit of a long game
The
card.
Jinteki that just sits there and it's like, I have a bunch of 1-point agendas. You're going to have to score a lot. I'm going to have to score a lot to win. You're going to hit shocks. You're going to hit snares. You're going to hit feels. You're going to run out of cards.
Yeah.
That's what it's doing. And I think this makes it in. Right now, it definitely makes it into the Jinteki.
I would agree with that. How about Tsurugi?
Tsurugi's next. Yep. 6 cost Jinteki piece of ice, 2 strength. It's a sentry. It's an AP. 2 influence. Has 4 subroutines. The first one is in the run unless the Corp pays 1 credit. The other 3 are do 1 net damage.
This is an interesting one for me because I feel like it has the form that a lot of this when you res take a bad pub ice has, but it doesn't have that clause.
Yeah.
So it's really nice. Man, how great is this?
I love it.
I think this is phenomenal ice.
The only downside is Parasite. Like, Parasite destroys this ice, but, I mean, Parasite's not everywhere.
Yeah, it's certainly not what it used to be, and you don't have to res anything you don't want to, so... Just a great little early game piece of ice.
That's an expensive piece of ice.
Talk about slowing the runner down, though, turn 1. You know, it's over R&D, and it's like, okay, I'll face check R&D. I'm going to pay... You have to pay 7 credits, essentially, but then they take 3 net damage. That ends their turn. I mean, they can't keep doing anything, and it's a little in the run if you need to.
The real thing about it, though, is, like, Neurokatana, you pay 4, and it's got 1 subroutine in the run. Mimic breaks it for 1.
Yeah.
Mimic breaks us for 4.
Yeah.
It
Still not
2,
good.
It costs 2 extra, but 4 money is not cheap when it comes to a piece of ice, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
That's
that
not
is
cheap at all.
it's pricey. And it's just nice to finally have a sentry that is able to tax the runner as opposed to what it used to be. Like, in Jinteki, you have Neurokatanas, you have Swordsman, and you have Tsurugi now.
Yeah.
It's like, Swordsman and Neurokatanas die to Mimic. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like,
They just get wrecked.
I
It's a
don't
waste of
install
piece of
them.
ice,
I'm just
yeah.
like, okay,
Mhm.
I'll just move on.
Yeah.
But
This doesn't. You want them running this over and over
Yeah.
and over and over.
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I'll leave that there.
Yep.
Very good. Little 2 influence. I think we'll see this in a lot of decks, at least as a one of.
And I have to note, I love that art.
Yeah.
Cover
Yeah.
art, and it
Yeah.
looks phenomenal.
If you really look at it, it'll freak you out.
Yep. True colors.
Going on to TGTBT, also known as Too Good to Be True, 3-1 for NBN. It's our new agenda. It is an ambush. If Too Good to Be True is accessed from R&D, the runner must reveal it. When the runner accesses it, give the runner 1 tag.
I like it.
I like this card. I think we're getting to a point in NBN now where we can do the annoying a lot of agendas thing. Although it's a different deck for sure because
Annoying lot of agendas.
getting rid of AstroScript is really hard. But if you want to run this and breaking news and then like, I don't know, profiteering or some of those and just have a long game in BN with midseason and I want you to score and then I'm going to tag punish you all game.
Yeah.
I think it works into that deck pretty well. It's a good one to have in the could be used pile for me.
It's also worth noting that it's when it's accessed and not scored. So,
Yeah.
like, if you have a red herrings with it and they can't pay the 5, they'll still take the tag.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think is good to know.
It's very nice.
I love 3-1s. And I think giving them a tag, I mean, even if they remove the tag or can prevent it in some way, probably making them spend a click and some
Clicking
money.
2 credits.
And the art's really good, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a good little NBN include. Again, I often soapbox about already having plenty of ways to give tags and not enough to do with them, but I think we're starting to even out a little bit as the game goes on.
Yeah.
So pretty solid here. Who's got it?
I got
Who's
it.
sweeping.
Up next is Sweep Week. It's a 1 cost, 2 influence NBN operation. Gain 1 credit for each card on the runner's grip.
Yep.
This card is phenomenal.
So Beanstalk royalties, green level clearance, celebrity gift. Is this the NBN version of our first real money card?
I would agree.
I think so.
What a good little flavor on this card too.
I think this is a fantastic card. There's so much like kill potential right now that the runner needs to have cards in hand. If you have 1 credit, knowing you can pop up to 4 or 5 money, and I think just with how prevalent Andromeda was at Worlds and at pretty much every major event since she's been around.
This is massive.
This is a
Sandy.
huge opening. It's like
Massive.
I'll pay 1, gain 8.
Yeah.
Or gain 9, but net 8.
Net 8.
That's just I love it. I love seeing
Crazy.
cards that come out to kind of play around what's
Yeah.
popular.
I would agree. It's just a solid money card. At worst best, it's a 1 cost hedge fund. Which how many times have you been at like 1 credit? It's like I have a hedge
Absolutely.
fund.
And we
3
saw.
credits.
I mean, you look at NBN Fast Advance that Veen was running at Worlds, and it was all money. It was all Beanstalk and green level because NBN has a problem digging itself out of that 1 to 2 credit zone, which they find themselves in all the time.
Mhm.
Cash out on an Astro script to get it out, or cash out on a Sand res, and you just have very little money, and we have slow trickle stuff from Marked and maybe Pat if you're going that direction. But Sweep gives us a nice little low burst, and it's exactly what the faction needed to kind of stick in there.
Yep.
So
It's huge.
love it. I love the old Sweeps Week midseason play as well.
It is
Been
good.
doing a lot of that around here.
Next up, yeah, we have Sweep Weeks, man. It's
Go
good.
ahead. Go ahead, our little RSVP.
Next up, RSVP. It's a NBN Ice, 2 influence. It's a code gate, 3 res, 4 strength. 1 subroutine. The runner cannot spend any credits for the remainder of this run.
It's a powerful card.
It's such a powerful card
It's
in
huge.
very, very crazy and interesting ways.
I think 4 costs on the code gate is right where you want to be. Only cost you 3
Oh
res.
man, yeah.
I mean, I would like to be at like 8, but
Well,
I mean,
Always.
this is a huge card. You can do so much with this card is what it gets me about it. You can do so much with this card, even if you just use it to where they can't pump their icebreakers anymore, right? It's like you put this on the outermost, and it essentially becomes you can't run until you get a code gate breaker at 4 string.
I mean, RSVP Ice Wall. You have a critter out wall.
Yeah, you can't spend credits. Or, of course it's great as a single piece of ice behind a Red Herring's remote, behind, as Joe was doing, I would say Sundew, just
Or Fetal.
great. Anything that it protects any assets you might want to trash, even makes makes weird cards like even City Surveillance way better.
It makes City Surveillance way better.
It's like put City Surveillance
Oh
behind
my
RSVP.
god, it makes it so much better.
Yeah, and it's like, well,
It makes it playable.
what are you going to do? Like,
Are you really gonna
do
break
that?
it? Okay, that was worth it
Yeah.
for me as the corporation.
Yeah.
And,
And
like,
now I'm gonna do it again.
I could see really weird combos with this in like off the grid servers.
Mhm.
Could be interesting. It's like, well, I made my successful HQ run, but now I get down there and I can't even trash it. It's like there's just a lot of weird stuff, that could do it. Isn't it off the grid has the HQ successful
If you
run?
make a successful run at HQ, you trash it.
Oh, you just straight up trash it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not as good as I was thinking.
I mean, I feel like this is really mean in Jinteki. Just when I'm thinking about all the...
It's mean in it. Like,
it's mean everywhere.
You
But,
can't
like,
you can't pump traces.
I'm just picturing hitting, like, a snare and not being able to trash it.
You can trash a snare. Spinning 0 is not any. It's been ruled that way.
Yeah, 0 is not spinning. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can pay 0, so you can still.
That
yog.
would be nuts, though.
Yeah,
You
it's
can
like,
let it be enough.
snare.
But
and then I
Junebug
can't
is
do
another
anything.
story.
You can still Junebug's 0 cost as well.
Dang, I thought Junebug was 1.
No.
What have I been playing?
I don't know.
Well,
Cerebral?
there's that.
There's 3.
3 ball 0, trash as well.
I'm thinking of res cost.
Have we
That's
played
what's
this
in my
one?
head right now.
Yeah.
1 costs a res, Junebug, 3 costs a res.
Well, they're both 0 to res, but
Yeah.
3 on the access, 1 on access.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, not being able to spend credits is a big... You kind of have to break it if you can. If not, you're probably getting out of there.
How crazy is this piece of ice, though,
Yeah,
really?
It's good. It dies to Yogg Data Sucker and also dies to Ice Carver Data Sucker.
Mm-hmm.
But.
Or ice cover Yogg. Just what
Or
It's
we-
a- it's a game we
Torch
play.
Or Gordian.
It's a game you play.
At least, I mean, having to break a 4-strength Kogate just to play on the server is a good start,
Yeah.
I like this as outermost or innermost with just some weird assets behind it that
Mhm.
make things annoying.
Yeah. For certain.
I'm in.
This is great. Speaking of interesting and potentially great cards,
This is one of them.
let's go to Curtain Wall. 14 res cost barrier, 6 strength, but if it's the outermost, it gets plus 4 strength, so it becomes a 10 strength barrier with 3 in the runs on it. And then the flavor text is hilarious on this. It has a little end of the game subroutine, and then it says "just kidding," which is class.
Yeah, I
It's
laughed
pure
pretty
class.
hard the first time around.
Pure class. 2 influence. Obviously pretty easy to make it the outermost. Seems to slot into oversight style decks, right?
Oversight. just
Glacier-y kind
Glacier.
of stuff.
I think Oversight's the only time that you really want to play this card.
14 is big.
14 is big.
But do you run this over Hadrian's? Still got 3 in the runs instead of 2.
2.
It's a little bit more expensive to res.
On the, like, if it's not the outermost piece, it works out to the same cost to break
Mhm.
for a Corroder.
Mhm.
Which, let's be real here, everyone's running a Corroder.
Let's be real.
If it's outermost,
It was outermost, it costs 4 extra. So it's like 7 or 11.
It's expensive. If you run oversight, this is at least a strong consideration.
Yeah.
Glacier decks.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
You
This
get a
is-
new piece of ice.
It's obviously at 14 cost. It's a glacier card.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it goes. That's
not
it.
going anywhere.
So, Yeah, interesting.
It's kind of a weird. It's a Wayland card that doesn't really change anything about Wayland.
Yeah.
It might be a Curtain Wall or Hadrian's, and it doesn't much matter either way. But now they have 2, so they could run 6 of those kinds of cards if they wanted.
They could.
Might be a taxing kind of deck. I mean,
It's possible.
explore it.
All
Let's
right.
explore it.
Up next.
Now this is a card.
We have Punitive Counter-Strike. It's a 3-cost Wayland operation. It's Black Ops, and it's 2 influence. Trace 5. If successful, do meat damage to the runner equal to the number of agenda points on agendas he or she stole during his or her last turn.
This is a super, super interesting card.
It's so scary. So scary. I feel like Noise keeps getting hosed. Am I right on that, or am I wrong? Because I feel like that.
Am I right, or
I feel like that
am I
Noise
right?
Archives run that yields you the 4 or 5 points that it normally does to get you in the game.
I think that this card doesn't screw Noise. I just think it just encourages them to play normal Netrunner.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, check archives every now and then.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
just wait up for a big run. Like,
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that's scary to me about it is if I run and I score 2 points, I've achieved everything that you need to kill me, assuming that you have the decent Wayland cards. Because I've done a successful run, so you can C-source me. I've also stolen an agenda, so you can do 2 meat damage to me, and then you can scorch me, and that's 6. So that is what's scary to me, is it slots so well into what kill decks are already doing, specifically Wayland decks are already doing, and it gives me another way to punish you for trying to win. And any card that does that is a real bummer.
I love this card with Feudal AI.
Mm.
Because you score it, you take 3 damage, and then now I can punitive for 2. That's not fun.
Yeah.
That's rough.
I've won a few games
I mean,
off of that, just installing a Feudal face down. Credit.
The interesting part here is, kill is alive and well in this game. It is obviously a thing. It's happening. You got to watch out. You got to be careful.
You gotta watch out.
But I feel like the more I've played against it, and I've played against a lot of kill decks in the past week, actually, since this pack's come out, and at the same time, that setup you were talking about, not only does it take the cards and the agenda being scored at the right time, but it also takes 2 successful traces.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously...
It started at Trace 5, which is a hard one,
So, the only reason I'm saying that is, you have, if you see source to tag, or if you mid-seasons, and you have to do this, I would have to run, score, you'd have to have the cards, and I would have to not have money.
Mm-hmm.
That's, to me, the money side of the equation is the big part is the runner. Because I feel like there's a certain amount of prevention, whether it be plasticretes or anti-tag or anti-damage, and then also just having money. Because the Corp has to out money you, which they're supposed to be able to do.
Pretty good at it.
They have to out money you by a decent amount to do 2 successful traces in the same turn. Because if it's not by a decent amount, then do they spend their money on the first one or the second one?
Mm-hmm.
And how does that
does
math
get a little
work
interesting,
out? So,
for sure.
I know that I've played this in my deck since the game came out, and it's not usually been a problem for me to get it off.
I think it happens.
Since the game came out?
Since this pack
I was
came
like, whoa.
Whoa.
Dude, Tim's been ahead of the curve for a long time.
He knew it was coming.
No, but yeah, you put 1 or 2 here in your standard Wayland deck, and it just gives you another way to do it, you know? And you need, now the likelihood of you seeing your combo pieces is higher. It may be less good than having 2 Scorch, but having a Scorch and a Punitive still can get the job done. So I would say that, it just makes these decks more consistent. And it also offers new tricks, too, like the Archives 5 agenda play and all that.
Or even 3 or 4 agendas.
Yeah.
Or 4 points, I should say.
Yeah. And even 2 punitives, by the way.
In Jinteki, though, that's so much stronger.
It's so good in Jinteki.
I turn 1, or turn whatever, I Jackson a couple times, discard 3 or 4 1-pointers. You run, take 4 damage.
Net damage.
Yeah.
That's rough.
And then I'm like, punitive.
Yeah.
Good game.
Yeah.
It's like...
Archives gets weird.
And then there's shock as well on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is solid.
It's a phenomenal card.
It's a really, really good card. And, of course, it makes a lot of sense in VN too. Trace 7 starts out at it. Sure. We'll give you that.
Why
Yep.
not?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So just all around, really good card. Runners, beware. That's scary. It's scary.
Yep. It's a scary world out there. Yep.
It's
We round out the
just
pack
nervous.
with a neutral 3-1 agenda veterans program. It's agenda initiative. When you score a veterans program, you may remove up to 2 bad publicity. Love it.
Yeah.
It's another 3/1. Certain decks will love this card. Certain decks will
Next
not.
deck will love this
I
card.
love this so much, so much. I love 3/1s in general, but removing the bad pub, huge, just
Yeah.
phenomenal for the deck I'm running.
Pretty self-explanatory there.
It's either going to be good for your deck or it's not.
If you want it, then run it. If you want it, then run it.
Give me 3 of them, baby.
All right, guys. So thank you so much for sticking around and watching the unboxing of this amazing data pack. A really big one for the Corp. Key cards, Punitive Counter-Strike. I think RSVP is a big one. Sweeps Week is big.
Shock.
Ambient got some really good love on this pack. Shock, of course. Jinteki is doing well. Just good stuff all around. The runner, we got some cool things. Not quite as dramatic,
It's
but
definitely a Corp pack.
but good.
But I
And the
think
Corp
needed
needed
it.
the pack.
I think Corp needed
I don't know
it.
if it needed punitive, but it needed something.
It needed the pack.
Well, let's hear. So thanks for watching. We have True Colors, of course, available for sale on the store if you want to throw some support our way. That's a good way to do it. Another really good way is to become a Data Pack subscriber. And you can do that by just going to the site and signing up for that subscription, and you'll get every Data Pack from now until eternity or until you turn it off. So thanks for watching. Check those options out, and we'll have more coming from Team Covenant HQ a little bit later on numerous videos down the line. So thanks a lot. Take care.
Thanks, guys.